As we've heard, the focus in Zimbabwe is not just on the politics, but also on the economy. For a closer look at that, we've reached David Pilling. He's the Africa editor for the Financial Times and was recently in Zimbabwe. David Pilling spoke to us from London. David, how would you describe the economic situation in Zimbabwe now?
Well, Zimbabwe for years has been run into the ground, basically. It's an economy with no currency, precious few reserves, very few jobs. The government even struggles to pay civil servants who are, in a sense, the main kind of wage earners in the country. There have, of course, been sanctions for many, many years. So it's a country that has enormous, I think, economic potential, but one that, for various historical reasons, is really a sort of a tiny fraction of what it could be.
When you talk about economic potential, what are you talking about?
Well, Zimbabwe used to be known, rightly or wrongly, and I think there's a certain exaggeration, but still as the kind of breadbasket of the region, very, very fertile land. Farmers with very high yields, and Zimbabwe was a net exporter of agricultural products. I think it was also a manufacturing base, and there's a lot of light manufacturing in Zimbabwe. And even now, after all these years of the economy really being run into the ground, there's still light manufacturing. But I think more than both of those is really it has a very educated entrepreneurial workforce. Mugabe, when he came into power, one of the first things he did was to extend the educational system, which of course had been good, but it had been good concentrated on whites in the country. And Mugabe quite rightly tried to extend that to the black population. And this was one of the things that they got right, and for which it's now forgotten, but for which he won a lot of praise at the time. And it is quite noticeable. There is a very articulate, knowledgeable Zimbabwean class of people who have gone through the education system. If you go to South Africa, there are literally hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of Zimbabweans, many of them in quite high-powered jobs. So an educated class is something that Zimbabwe certainly has. And if money started flowing into the country, I think people that know the country well think that there's very little doubt that you'd certainly begin to see growth and a sort of an accelerated economic momentum.
So is it realistic to think that President Managua can be a better steward of this economy?
It's realistic to hope that he could, but we don't know. Managua has made various noises in that direction. If you listen to his inauguration speech, he talked quite a lot about the economy in a setting where he didn't necessarily have to talk in the way he did about a stable environment for foreign investors, etc. Since that speech, he has nominated his first cabinet. I would say that the first cabinet is very disappointing. There's been very little, or in fact no, sign that he wants to reach out to the opposition in Zimbabwe. He hasn't necessarily appointed technocrats. He's appointed a lot of kind of old ZANU-PF dinosaurs and friends, people from the military. And this is not the kind of technocratic, open cabinet that he could have gone for, and that we might even have kind of expected he might have gone for. However, having said all that, there still is a chance. As I said, the country is in dire economic straits, and I think Managua knows that he can only be better off politically, economically, in terms of his popularity, if he gets the economy going again. There's some quite quick wins, bringing in foreign investment, clearing up the debt arrears, sorting out problems with the IMF and World Bank, etc., and creating an environment where investors, foreign investors, feel as though they can send money into the country. And none of that is particularly difficult to do, but he does have to choose to do it and take the appropriate policies.
Put China into the picture, because the relationship between Zimbabwe and China has been important. And of course, China is playing an increasing economic role more broadly in Africa. How might China play a role here?
Well, behind the scenes, I think it's true to say that China kind of got a bit fed up with Robert Mugabe. A couple of years ago, as far as I've been told by people, who were present at various meetings, and Mugabe basically asked if the Chinese would bail out the Zimbabwean economy, and the Chinese said no. You need to sort out your relations with the international community. You need to sort out, crucially, a succession plan. Mugabe didn't really do that. There was a move, something called the Lima process, to begin to pay debt arrears and to fix their problems with the IMF and World Bank and the multilateral institutions. But Mugabe kept sort of stopping that. And now that Mugabe's gone, it's possible that that could start again. It's also possible that China may relent and say, well, now Mugabe's gone, this is a country that we can now bet on. I think they poured quite a lot of money into Zimbabwe, and not all of it was accountable for, let's say. And so the Chinese got fed up. Just as the West may give Zimbabwe a chance under new leadership, if Managua shows that he is new leadership and is going in a different direction, China may also respond to the same signals.
David Pilling, thank you very much for your insight on this.
Not at all. Thank you very much.